All right, chapter 6, page 72, right column under elements of a weld symbol, about halfway down. The welding symbol is defined as a graphical representation of a weld. It is a method of representing the weld symbol on drawings and includes supplementary information and consists of the following 8 elements: a reference line, arrow, basic weld symbols, dimensions and other data, supplementary symbols, finished symbols, tail, specification process, or other reference. All right, so we're going to talk about each one of those parts. So the first one is reference line. In the construction of a welding symbol, the primary element that is always included is the reference line, which is simply a horizontal line segment that provides the basis for all other parts of the symbol. All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. Just that horizontal line. Next one on the next page, left column. Arrow. The next element of the welding symbol is the arrow, which is the line segment that connects to one end of the reference line and points to one side of the weld joint. The side to which the arrow points is referred to as the arrow side, while the opposite side is called the other side. Once the arrow side and the other side have been determined by the placement of the arrow, information relating to either or both sides can be specified. The AWS rule is that any information placed below the reference line relates to the arrow side of the joint, and that information above the reference line describes what will occur on the other side of the joint. No matter which end of the reference line is attached to the arrow or which direction the arrow may point, the rule remains the same, even with the arrow oriented in different directions and at either end of the reference line. The operations will be performed on the side of the joint to which the arrow points. All right, so above the line it's going to be the other side. Below the line is arrow side all the time. All right. Go to the next column to the right, basic weld symbols. Weld symbols that depict arrow side welds will be positioned below the reference line, and symbols referring to the other side welds will be positioned above the reference line. Note that some weld symbols are placed so that the reference line splits them in half, like spot, projection, and seam welds, which means that the weld has no side significance, and either side can be called the arrow side. Down a little further, note that for weld symbols that represent welds with only one of the two members prepared, the perpendicular side of the symbol will always appear on the left side. So, what they're talking about is like a fillet weld symbol, right? We know it's a triangle. That vertical line going up and down will always be on the left side. We can't flip that around and put the vertical line on the right side, right? So if we have a J groove, we could have a straight line on the left side, and then you'll see the J groove to the right of it. So our vertical line is always going to be on the left. Okay. Let's go to the next page, page 74. Left column, dimensions and other data, groove weld detailing, about the last sentence of the first paragraph. Groove weld features that need dimensions include the joint configuration, weld size, and extent of welding. All right, so that's something we're going to be showing in our weld symbol, right? Our configuration, weld size, and extent of the welding. So if we have a 1/2 inch groove weld, we're going to show that we have a groove weld on there. We're going to show that that's been prepared at a 1/2 inch, and then we need to know how much we're going to fill that joint. That's what they're talking about right there. Down a little further, about halfway through the next paragraph, another important dimension for the preparation of the groove is the depth of preparation. This dimension is always shown to the left of the groove weld symbol. This depth is measured from the base material surface in each case, and specified depth of preparation is that dimension outside of the parentheses. In general, dimensions to the left of the weld symbol refer to the weld size required. So if we have a number to the left of our groove weld, and it is, we have maybe have in parentheses we have 1/2 inch, and then to the left of that little number in parentheses we have 3/4 of an inch. What that means is we have 3/4 of an inch depth of preparation, and then we're going to fill it up in that number in the parentheses. 1/2 inch means how much we're going to fill it up. All right. If there's nothing inside the parentheses, we have to assume that we're going to fill that joint up completely. So if we have a depth of preparation of 1/2 of an inch, and so there's just a number to the left of that groove weld symbol, and there's no parentheses, just a number there. So it's 1/2 inch. That means our depth of preparation is 1/2 inch, and we need to fill that thing all the way up. All right. So that's something that can be kind of tricky when we're looking at these weld symbols, especially with the grooves. Is we need to understand that there's a depth of preparation and then an actual weld size, and the weld size is in parentheses. It's really easy to get that confused. Sure enough. Next paragraph, the dimension, which is in parentheses, placed to the left of the symbol, refer to the groove weld size or joint penetration required for groove welds. Absence of dimensions for depth of preparation or weld size implies that the required weld is to have complete joint penetration. We talked about that. Let's go to the next column under fillet weld detailing. Be the third paragraph. A common weld practice is to use intermittent fillet welds instead of a continuous fillet weld to reduce distortion in the amount of time required for welding. The dimensions for intermittent fillet welds are shown as two numbers separated by a hyphen. The first number is the length of each individual weld segment, and the second number refers to the center-to-center spacing of these weld segments. The spacing from one segment to the next is referred to as pitch. The pitch is measured as the center-to-center distance of each adjacent length of fillet weld. Right, so we actually do this a lot in structure, where we lay out a fillet weld. We call them skip welds. We lay out a skip weld on maybe a T-joint. Right, so we need to know how long that weld has to be, which should be our weld length. Maybe we have on our weld symbol, maybe it says 2-6. What that means is that we're going to have a 2-inch long fillet weld, and from the center of this fillet weld to the next one is going to be 6 inches. All right. Once you lay them out, if we're like inspecting this, you can measure front to front or back to back or center to center. It's all the same as long as the welds are the same. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to, well, that next paragraph talks about chain intermittent and staggered intermittent. So I'll put those up on the board here shortly. Let's go to the next page, 75. Right column, second paragraph. Dimensions for plug welds include plug weld size, depth of filling, pitch distances between adjacent plugs, and groove angle for tapered plug holes. The plug weld size dimension appears to the left of the weld symbol and indicates its diameter. All right, so this is where it kind of gets confusing a little bit. So with groove welds, to the left of that is going to be our depth of preparation and our weld size, right? Over here, with the plug weld, it's going to show your plug weld symbol, and then to the left of that is going to be the diameter of that plug weld. So it may say 1/2 inch next to a plug weld symbol, and that's talking about the diameter of the plug weld. It's not talking about how much we fill it up. It's not talking about the depth of preparation. It's going to be talking diameter. So we have to understand that different weld symbols on there, the numbers next to them are going to represent different things. This is where it kind of gets confusing. If the hole is intended to be only partially filled, the required depth of filling is indicated with the plug weld symbol. Pitch distances are shown to the right of the plug weld symbol. If the hole is to be tapered to provide better root access, the angular dimensions appear just outside, above or below the weld symbol. In general terms, the rules for plug welds also apply to the welding symbols for slot welds. All right. I got a sheet I'm going to hand you out. Good reference sheet. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Let's go to page 76. Yep, sure enough. Yep, it'll say it inside the symbol. All right, page 76, left column, second sentence into that first paragraph. The size dimension that refers to the diameter of the spot or width of the seam is shown to the left of the weld symbol. Okay. And into that second paragraph, second sentence. The required number of spots is shown by the number enclosed in parentheses just above or below the weld symbol. In seam welds, the first number to the right of the symbol is the length of the seam weld, while the second number is the pitch. All right, so if we have a number in parentheses above our symbol, it's going to be talking about that's how many we need. All right, so there may be 10 of them. It's going to tell us in parentheses that there are 10 spot welds.